Chapter 17. Whatever personal satisfaction Eve felt on finding herself part of the team who questioned Simpson, she hid it well. In deference to his position, they used the Office of Security Administration rather than an interrogation area. The clear wrap of windows and the glossy acrylic table didn't negate the fact that Simpson was in deep trouble. The beading of sweat above his top lip indicated he knew just how deep. "The media is trying to injure the department," Simpson began, using the statement meticulously prepared by his senior aide. With the very visible failure of the investigation into the brutal deaths of 3 women, the media is attempting to incite a witch hunt. As chief of police, I'm an obvious target. Chief Simpson. Not by the flicker of an eyelash did Commander Whitney expose his inner glee. His voice was grave, his eyes somber. His heart was celebrating. Regardless of the motive, it will be necessary for you to explain the discrepancy in your books. Simpson sat frozen while one of his attorneys leaned over and murmured in his ear, "I have not admitted to any discrepancy. If one exists, I'm unaware of it." Unaware, Chief Simpson, of more than $2 million? I've already contacted my accounting firm. Obviously, if there is a mistake of some nature, it was made by them. Will you confirm or deny that the account numbered 478-91127-499 is yours? After another brief consultation, Simpson nodded. "I will confirm that." To lie would only tighten the noose. Whitney glanced at Eve. They'd agreed the account was an IRS matter. All they'd wanted was for Simpson to confirm. "Will you explain, Chief Simpson, the withdrawal of $100,000, in $25,000 increments, every 3 months during the past year?" Simpson tugged at the knot of his tie. "I see no reason to explain how I spend my money, Lieutenant Dallas." "Then perhaps you can explain how it is those same amounts were listed by Sharon DeBlas and accredited to you." "I don't know what you're talking about." "We have evidence that you paid to Sharon DeBlas $100,000, in $25,000 increments in 1 year's period." Eve waited a beat. "That's quite a large amount between casual acquaintances." "I have nothing to say on the matter." "Was she blackmailing you?" "I have nothing to say." "The evidence says it for you," Eve stated. "She was blackmailing you. You were paying her off." "I'm sure you're aware there are only 2 ways to stop extortion, Chief Simpson. 1. You cut off the supply. 2. You eliminate the blackmailer." "This is absurd." "I didn't kill Sharon. I was paying her like clockwork." Chief Simpson. The elder of the team of lawyers put a hand on Simpson's arm, squeezed. He turned his mild gaze to Eve. "My client has no statement to make regarding Sharon DeBlas. Obviously, we will cooperate in any way with the Internal Revenue Service's investigation into my client's records. At this time, however, no charges have been made. We're here only as a courtesy, and to show our goodwill." "Were you acquainted with a woman known as Lola Starr?" Eve shot out. "My client has no comment." "Did you know licensed companion, Georgie Castle?" Same response. The lawyer said patiently. "You've done everything you could to roadblock this murder investigation from the beginning. Why?" "Is that a statement of fact, Lieutenant Dallas?" the lawyer asked. "Or an opinion?" "I'll give you facts. You knew Sharon DeBlas, intimately. She was hosing you for $100,000 a year. She's dead, and someone is leaking confidential information on the investigation. 2 more women are dead. All the victims made their living through illegal prostitution, something you oppose." "My opposition of prostitution is a political, moral, and a personal stance," Simpson said tightly. "I will support wholeheartedly any legislation that outlaws it. But I would hardly eliminate the problem by picking off prostitutes one at a time." "You own a collection of antique weapons," Eve persisted. "I do," Simpson agreed, ignoring his attorney. "A small, limited collection. All registered, secured, and inventoried. I'll be more than happy to turn them over to Commander Whitney for testing." "I appreciate that," Whitney said, shocking Simpson by agreeing. "Thank you for your cooperation." Simpson rose, his face a battleground of emotion. "When this matter is cleared up, I won't forget this meeting." His eyes rested briefly on Eve. "I won't forget who attacked the office of Chief of Police and Security." Commander Whitney waited until Simpson sailed out, followed by his team of attorneys. "When this is settled, he won't get within 100 yards of the office of Chief of Police and Security." "I needed more time to work on him." "Why'd you let him walk?" "His isn't the only name on the DeBlas list," Whitney reminded her. "And there's no tie, as yet, between him and the other 2 victims." "Whittle the list down," Get me a tie, and I'll give you all the time you need. He paused, shuffling through the hard copies of the documents that had been transmitted to his office. Dallas, you seemed very prepared for this interview. Almost as if you'd been expecting it. I don't suppose I need to remind you that tampering with private documents is against the law. No, sir. I didn't think I did. Dismissed. As she headed for the door, she thought she heard him murmur good job, but she might have been mistaken. She was taking the elevator to her own section when her communicator blipped. Dallas, call for you. Charles Monroe. I'll get back to him. She snagged a cup of sludge masquerading as coffee, and what might have been a donut as she passed through the bullpen area of the records section. It took nearly 20 minutes for her to requisition copies of the discs for the 3 homicides. Closeting herself in her office, she studied them again. She reviewed her notes, made fresh ones. The victim was on the bed each time. The bed rumpled each time. They were naked each time. Their hair was mussed. Eyes narrowed. She ordered the image of Lola start to freeze, pull into close-up. Skin reddened left buttocks, she murmured. Missed that before. Spanking? Domination thrill? Doesn't appear to be bruising or welting. Have Feeney enhance and determine. Switch to deblastape. Again. Eve ran it. Sharon laughed at the camera, taunted it, touching herself, shifting. Freeze image. Quadrant to Shita try 16, increase. No marks, she said. Continue. Come on, Sharon, show me the right side, just in case. Little more. Freeze. Quadrant 12, increase. No marks on you. Maybe you did the spanking, huh? Run castle disc. Come on Georgie, let's see. She watched the woman smile, flirt, lift a hand to smooth down her tousled hair. Eve already knew the dialogue perfectly. That was wonderful. You're terrific. She was kneeling, sitting back on her haunches, her eyes pleasant and companionable. Silently, Eve began to urge her to move, just a little, shift over. Then Georgia yawned delicately, turned to fluff the pillows. Freeze. Oh yeah, paddled you, didn't he? Some guys get off on playing bad girl and daddy. She had a flash, like a stab of a knife through the brain. Memories sliced through her, the solid slap of a hand on her bottom, stinging, the heavy breathing. You have to be punished, little girl. Then daddy's going to kiss it better. He's going to kiss it all better. Jesus. She rubbed shaking hands over her face. Stop. Put it away. Put it away. She reached for cold coffee and found only dregs. The past was past, she reminded herself, and had nothing to do with her, nothing to do with the job at hand. Victim 2 and 3 show marks of abuse on buttocks. No marks on victim 1. She let out a long breath, took in a slow one. Steadier. Break-in pattern. Apparent emotional reaction during first murder, absent in subsequent 2. Her link buzzed, she ignored it. Possible theory, perpetrator gained confidence, enjoyment in subsequent murders. Note, no security on victim 2. Time lapse on security cameras. Victim 3, 33 minutes less than victim 1. Possible theory, more adept, more confident, less inclined to play with victim. Wants the kick faster. Possible, she thought, and her computer agreed after a jittery wheeze, with a 9/63 probability factor. But something else was clicking as she ran the 3 discs so closely together, interchanging sections. Split screen, she ordered, victims 1 and 2, from beginning. Sharon's cat smile, Lola's pout. Both women looked toward the camera, toward the man behind it. Spoke to him. Freeze images, Eve said so softly only the sharp ears of the computer could have heard her. Oh God, what have we here? It was a small thing, a slight thing, and with the eyes focused on the brutality of the murders, easily missed. But she saw it now, through Sharon's eyes. Through Lola's. Lola's gaze was angled higher. The height of the beds could account for it, Eve told herself as she added Georgie's image to the screen. Each woman had their head tilted. After all, they were sitting, he very likely standing. But the angle of the eyes, the point at which they stared. Only Sharon's was different. Still watching the screen, Eve called Dr. Myra. I don't care what she's doing, Eve spat out at the drone working reception. It's urgent, she snarled as she was put on hold and her ears assaulted with mindless, sugary music. Question, she said the moment Myra was on the line. Yes, Lieutenant. Is it possible we have 2 killers? A copycat? Unlikely, Lieutenant, given as much of the method and style of the murders has been kept under wraps. Shit leaks. I've got breaks in pattern. Small ones, but definite breaks. Impatient, she outlined them. Theory: Doctor. The first murder committed by someone who knew Sharon well, who killed on impulse, then had enough control to clean up behind himself well. The second two are reflections of the first crime, fine down, thought through, committed by someone cold, calculating, with no connection to his victims. And goddammit, he's taller. It's a theory, Lieutenant. I'm sorry, but it's just as likely, even more so, that all three murders were committed by one man who grows more calculating with each success. In my professional opinion, no one who wasn't privy to the first crime, to the stages of it, could have so perfectly mirrored the events in the second two. Her computer had ditched her theory as well, with a 48.5. Okay, thanks. Deflated, Eve disconnected. Stupid to be disappointed, she told herself. How much worse could it be if she were after two men instead of one? Her link buzzed again. Teeth bared in annoyance, she flipped on. Dallas. What? Hey, Lieutenant Sugar, a guy might think you didn't care. I don't have time to play, Charles. Hey, don't cut me off. I got something for you. Or for lame innuendos. No, really, boy. Flirt with a woman once or twice and she never takes you seriously. His perfect face registered hurt. You asked me to call if I remembered anything, right? Right. Patience, she warned herself. So, did you? It was the diaries that got me thinking. You know how I said she was always recording everything? Since you're looking for them, I figure they weren't over at her place. You should be a detective. I like my line of work. Anyhow, I started wondering where she might put them for safekeeping, and I remembered the safe deposit box. We've already checked it. Thanks, anyway. Oh, well, how'd you get into it without me? She's dead. Eve paused on the point of cutting him off. Without you? Yeah, 3 years ago. She asked me to sign for one for her. Said she didn't want her name on the record. Eve's heart began to thump. Then what good would it do her? Charles's smile was sheepish and charming. Well, technically, I signed her on as my sister. I've got one in Kansas City. So we listed Sharon as Annie Monroe. She paid the rent, and I just forgot about it. I can't even say for sure if she kept it, but I thought you might want to know. Where's the bank? First Manhattan, on Madison. Listen to me, Charles. You're home, right? That's right. You stay there. Right there. I'll be over in 15 minutes. We're going to go banking, you and me. If that's the best I can do. Hey, did I give you a hot lead, Lieutenant Sugar? Just stay put. She was up and shrugging into her jacket when her link buzzed again. Dallas. Dispatch. Dallas. We have a transmission on hold for you. Video blocked. Refuses to identify. Tracing? Tracing now. Then put it through. She swung up her bag as the audio clicked. This is Dallas. Are you alone? It was a female voice. Tremulous. Yes. Do you want me to help you? It wasn't my fault. You have to know it wasn't my fault. No one's blaming you. Training had Eve picking up on both fear and grief. Just tell me what happened. He raped me. I couldn't stop him. He raped me. He raped her, too. Then he killed her. He could kill me. Tell me where you are. She studied her screen, waiting for the trace to come through. I want to help, but I have to know where you are. Breath hitching. A whimper. He said it was supposed to be a secret. I couldn't tell. He killed her so she couldn't tell. Now there's me. No one will believe me. I believe you. I'll help you. Tell me, she swore as the transmission broke. Where? She demanded after switching to dispatch. Front Royal, Virginia. Number 703, 555, 3908. Address: I don't need it. Get me Captain Ryan Feeney in EDD. Fast. 2 minutes wasn't fast enough. Eve nearly drilled a hole in her temple, rubbing it while she waited. Feeney, I've got something, and it's big. What? I can't go into it yet, but I need you to go pick up Charles Monroe. Christ, Eve, have we got him? Not yet. Monroe's going to take you to Sharon's other safe box. You take good care of him, Feeney. We're going to need him, and you take damn good care of whatever you find in the box. What are you going to be doing? I've got to catch a plane. She broke transmission, then called Rourke. It took another 3 minutes of very precious time before he came online. I was about to call you, Eve. It looks like I have to fly to Dublin. Care to join me? Rourke, I need your plane. Now, I have to get to Virginia fast. If I go through channels or take public transport, the plane will be ready for you. Terminal C, Gate 22. She closed her eyes. Thanks, I owe you. Her gratitude lasted until she arrived at the gate and found Rourke waiting for her. I don't have time to talk. Her voice was a snap, her long legs eating up the distance from gate to lift. We'll talk on the plane. You're not going with me. This is official. This is my plane, Lieutenant, he interrupted smoothly as the lift closed them in together, gliding silently up. Can't you do anything without strings? Yes. This isn't one of them. The hatch opened. The flight attendant waited efficiently. Welcome aboard, sir, Lieutenant. Can I offer you refreshments? No, thank you. Have the pilot take off as soon as we're cleared. Rourke took his seat while Eve stood fuming. We can't take off until you're seated and secured. I thought you were going to Ireland. She could argue with him just as easily sitting down. It's not a priority. This is. Eve, before you state your case, I'll outline mine. You're going to Virginia in quite a rush. That points to the Nablas case and some new information. Beth and Richard are friends, close friends. I don't have many close friends, nor do you. Reverse situations. What would you do? She drummed her fingers on the arm of her chair as the plane began to taxi. This can't be personal. Not for you. For me, it's very personal. Beth contacted me even as I was arranging for the plane to be readied. She asked me to come. Why? She wouldn't say. She didn't have to. She only had to ask. Loyalty was a trait Eve had a difficult time arguing against. I can't stop you from going, but I'm warning you, this is department business. And the department is in upheaval this morning, he said evenly, because of certain information leaked to the media by an unnamed source. She hissed out a breath. Nothing like backing yourself into a corner. I'm grateful for your help. Enough to tell me the outcome? I imagine the cap will be off by the end of the day. She moved her shoulders restlessly, staring out the window, willing them miles away. Simpson's going to try to ditch the whole business on his accounting firm. I can't see him pulling it off. The IRS will get him for tax fraud. I imagine the internal investigation will uncover where he got the money. Considering Simpson's imagination, I'd bet on the standard kickbacks, bribes, and graft, and the blackmail. Oh, he was paying her. He admitted as much before his lawyer shut him up, and he'll cop to it. Once he realizes paying blackmail's a lot less dicey than accessory to murder. She took out her communicator, requested Feeney's access. Yo, Dallas. Did you get them? Feeney held a small box up so that she could see it in the tiny viewing screen. All labeled and dated. About 20 years worth. Start with the last entry, work back. I should hit destination in about 20 minutes. I'll contact you as soon as I can for a status report. Hey, Lieutenant Sugar. Charles edged his way on screen and beamed at her. How'd I do? You did good. Thanks. Now, until I say different, forget about the safe box, the diaries, everything. What diaries? He said with a wink. He blew her a kiss before Feeney elbowed him aside. I'm heading back to Cop Central now. Stay in touch. Out. Eve switched off, slipped the communicator back in her pocket. Rourke waited a beat. Lieutenant Sugar, shut up. Rourke. She closed her eyes to ignore him, but couldn't quite wipe the smirk off her face. When they landed, she was forced to admit that Rourke's name worked even faster than a badge. In minutes they were in a powerful rental car and eating up the miles to Front Royal. She might have objected about being delegated to the passenger seat, but she couldn't fault his driving. Ever done the Indy number? He spared her a brief glance as they bulleted up Route 95 at just under 100. But I've driven in a few Grand Prix. Figures. She tapped her fingers against the chicken stick when he shot the car into a vertical rise, skimmed daringly and illegally over the top of a small jam of cars. You say Richard is a good friend. How would you describe him? Intelligent, dedicated, quiet. He rarely speaks unless he has something to say. Overshadowed by his father, often at odds with him. How would you describe his relationship with his father? He brought the vehicle down again, wheels barely skidding on the road surface. From the little he might have said, and the things Beth let drop, I'd have to say combative, frustrated. And his relationship with his daughter? The choices she made were in direct opposition to his lifestyle, his, well, morals, if you wish. He's a staunch believer in freedom of choice and expression. Still, I can't imagine any father wanting his daughter to become a woman who sells herself for a living. Wasn't he involved in designing his father's security for the last senatorial campaign? He took the vehicle up again, maneuvered it off the road, muttering something about a shortcut. In the time he took to skim through a glade of trees, over a few residential buildings, and down again onto a quiet suburban street, he was silent. She stopped counting the traffic violations. Family loyalty transcends politics. A man with de Blas's views is either well loved or well hated. Richard may disagree with his father, but he'd hardly want him assassinated. And as he specializes in security law, it follows he'd assist his father in the matter. A son protects his father, Eve thought. And how far would de Blas go to protect his son? From what? Richard is a moderate's moderate. He maintains a low profile, supports his causes quietly. The import of the question struck. You're off target, Rourke said between his teeth. Way off target. We'll see. The house on the hill looked peaceful. Under the cold blue sky, it sat serenely, warmly, with a few brave crocuses beginning to peep out of the winter-stung grass. Appearances, Eve thought, were deceiving more often than not. She knew this wasn't a home of easy wealth, quiet happiness, and tidy lives. She was certain now that she knew what had gone on behind those rosy walls and gleaming glass. Elizabeth opened the door herself. If anything, she was paler and more drawn than when Eve had last seen her. Her eyes were puffy from weeping, and the mannishly tailored suit she wore bagged at the hips from recent weight loss. Oh, Rourke! As Elizabeth went into his arms, Eve could all but hear the fragile bones knocking together. I'm sorry I dragged you out here. I shouldn't have bothered you. Don't be silly. He tilted her face up with a gentleness that tugged at the heart Eve was struggling to hold distant. Beth, you're not taking care of yourself. I can't seem to function, to think, or to do. Everything's crumbling away at my feet. And she broke off, remembering abruptly that they weren't alone. Lieutenant Dallas. Eve caught the quick accusation in Elizabeth's eyes when she looked at Rourke. He didn't bring me, Miss Barrister. I brought him. I received a call this morning from this location. Did you make it? Number. Elizabeth stepped back. Her hands reached for each other, twisted. No, I didn't. It must have been Catherine. She arrived here last night, suddenly. Hysterical, overwrought. Her mother has been hospitalized, and the prognosis is poor. I can only think the stress of the last few weeks has been too much for her. That's why I called you, Rourke. Richard's at his wits' end. I don't seem to be any help. We needed someone. Why don't we go in and sit down? They're in the parlor. In a jittery move, Elizabeth turned to look down the hall. She won't take a sedative. She won't explain. She refused to let us do more than call her husband and son and tell them she was here, and not to come. She's frantic at the idea they might be in some sort of danger. I suppose what happened to Sharon has made her worry more about her own child. She's obsessed with saving him from God knows what. If she called me, Eve put in, then maybe she'll talk to me. Yes, all right. She led the way down the hall, and into the tidy, sun-washed parlor. Catherine de Blas sat on a sofa, leaning into her brother's arms. Eve couldn't be sure if he was comforting, or restraining. Richard raised stricken eyes to Rourke's. It's good of you to come. We're a mess, Rourke. His voice shook, nearly broke. We're a mess. Elizabeth. Rourke crouched in front of Catherine. Why don't you ring for coffee? Oh, of course. I'm sorry, Catherine. His voice was gentle, as was the hand he laid on her arm. But the touch had Catherine jerking up, her eyes going wide. Don't. Wada, what are you doing here? I came to see Beth and Richard. I'm sorry you're not well. Well? She gave what might have been a laugh as she curled into herself. None of us will ever be well again. How can we? We're all tainted. We're all to blame. For what? She shook her head, pushed herself into the far corner of the sofa. I can't talk to you, Congresswoman de Blas. I'm Lieutenant Dallas. You called me a little while ago. No, I didn't. Panicked, Catherine wrapped her arms tightly around her chest. I didn't call. I didn't say anything. As Richard leaned over to touch her, Eve shot him a warning glance. Deliberately, she put herself between them, sat and took Catherine's frigid hand. You wanted me to help, and I will help you. You can't. No one can. I was wrong to call. We have to keep it in the family. I have a husband. I have a little boy. Tears began to swim in her eyes. I have to protect them. I have to go away, far away, so I can protect them. We'll protect them, Eve said quietly. We'll protect you. It was too late to protect Sharon. You can't blame yourself. I didn't try to stop it, Catherine said in a whisper. Maybe I was even glad, because it wasn't me anymore. It wasn't me, Mr. Blass. I can help you. I can protect you and your family. Tell me who raped you. Richard let out a hiss of shock. My God, what are you saying? What? Eve turned on him, eyes fierce. Be quiet. There's no more secrets here. Secrets, Catherine said between trembling lips. It has to be a secret. No, it doesn't. This kind of secret hurts. It crawls inside you and eats at you. It makes you scared, and it makes you guilty. The ones who want it to be secret use that as the guilt, the fear, the shame. The only way you can fight back is to tell. Tell me who raped you. Catherine's breath shuddered out. She looked at her brother, terror bright in her eyes. Eve turned her face back, held it. Look at me, just me, and tell me who raped you. Who raped Sharon? My father. The words burst from her in a howl of pain. My father, my father, my father. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. Oh God. Across the room, Elizabeth stumbled back into the server droid. China shattered. Coffee seeped dark into the lovely rug. Oh my God, my baby. Richard shot off the couch, reaching her as she swayed. He caught her hard against him. I'll kill him for this. I'll kill him. Then he pressed his face into her hair. Beth. Oh, Beth. Do what you can for them, Eve murmured to Rourke as she gathered Catherine to her. You thought it was Richard, Rourke said in an undertone. Yes. Her eyes were dull and flat when she lifted them to his. I thought it was Sharon's father. Maybe I didn't want to think that something so foul could flourish in 2 generations. Rourke leaned forward. His face was hard as rock. One way or the other, de Blas is a dead man. Help your friends, Eve said evenly. I have work to do here.